Hi, and welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm your host, Rob Troutman, and it's week 2 of high school football here in Northeast Ohio, and we have our game recaps we're going to get to. We have a big show for you tonight as we have N.E.O. Zone High School Sports going to go over their top 25 and Billy Kosco. We also have Drew Allar, quarterback of the Medina Bees. He's a Penn State commit. He's going to be on the show at 8 o'clock to go over all kinds of different things about the Medina Bees and their big win. So we'll talk to him about that. And guys, welcome to the show here tonight.
Good to be back for a recap of week 2.
Yeah, it's been a fun, crazy day here today here at RRT Production Studios, but I think we're okay now. So we had to go up on a little bit later than we'd like, but nonetheless, we're here and excited to talk about week 2. Some pretty crazy games there this week, and some fun games to cover and go over, especially the Avon Medina game, which we'll get to. And I'm excited to talk to Drew Allar and see what he thinks about that game. I mean, it looked like it was just a crazy atmosphere there.
Yeah, it was, and we did talk to Billy. Well, we will talk to Billy, and he was actually at that game covering it. So he will, I'm surely, provide some good material on that. And while we're mentioning it, we'll just get into the GCC because there was some good games in the conference this week. We'll start off with Brunswick and Olmsted Falls, a battle of these two teams. It was a really close, contested battle. Brunswick was actually down 21-14 at the half. But come the second half, Brunswick's defense really came to play, and Olmsted Falls did not help their case at any with 4 turnovers. And the big play of the game was a 64-yard halfback toss from Kanensam to J.D. Sirwaka that went for 64 yards. And those are the type of plays that Brunswick needed to actually take the lead and actually win the game. So they go on to a 28-21 victory over Olmsted Falls. The heartbreaker of the week in the conference was Hudson and Euclid. Euclid really close to coming out with their first victory of the year, but it was a 61-yard Hail Mary from Jagger Pillay to Colin Pierce for Hudson that scored the game-winning touchdown with no time remaining. Just tough luck for the Euclid Panthers. Quarterback Deontay Rucker was 15-23, 195 yards at a touchdown. And for the Panthers, both Leroy Billups and Clayshawn Ivory had 2 touchdowns each for them, as Euclid really had a close game there, but could not get their first victory of the year. They will be looking for that this coming week. Give a shout-out to Coach Brian Wisniewski of the Solon Comets. He got his first victory as head coach of the Solon Comets. They took on the Shaker Heights Red Raiders, and they came away with a 33-20 victory for them as they notched their first victory of the year. Give the hard work, hustle, get your blue chip all in line because the Strongsville Mustangs had that going on as they defeated the Midview Middies 28-12 in this game. Strongsville, as a team, ran the ball 43 times for a total of 366 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wow. In this game, they had sustained drives, 3 scoring drives of 80 yards and 1 scoring drive of 92 yards. So really working on that sustainability of a drive, time management. Matt Spear for Strongsville, the quarterback, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he did add a passing touchdown on this one. Strongsville gets their first victory of the season, 28-12, over Midview. 2 of the best games feature 2 of the best teams, or 4 of the best teams in the conference. We'll start off with Menor and Ignatius. Starting off early in this game, Menor looked like it was going to take it. In fact, in the fourth quarter, Menor was up 21-7. Ignatius rallied to pull within 20-19. And then it was Evan Harper, who already had 4 receptions, 102 yards in this game, and 2 touchdowns. He added a 97-yard kick return late in the fourth quarter that sealed the deal and sealed the win for the Menor Cardinals in this one. Jacob Snow, the quarterback for the Cardinals, 345 yards passing, 3 touchdowns in this game. Coach Kyle for Ignatius really liked the fight in his team, but costly mistakes and penalties late in this game, he believed cost his team the victory. And obviously not making those tackles on special teams to allow Evan Harper to run 97 yards. But give credit to Evan Harper, just a solid game. Again, with those 4 receptions and 102 yards, 3 total touchdowns. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking to Medina quarterback Drew Allar here in a little bit. He led the Medina Bees to a solid 34-17 victory over Avon. Avon actually opened up with a nice scoring drive of 80 yards, capped by a 4-yard run by last week's SOT RT Production Player of the Week, Sam DiTilio. Juwan Jackson in this one had a 71-yard punt return later on in the first half, and then a touchdown pass from Drew Allar to Michael Rodak made it 21-10 at half. And then Drew Allar came to play in the second half. He actually scored the first touchdown of the second half and kind of sealed the deal for the Bees, the victory there on a 5-yard run. That was the opening drive. Drew finished with 15 of 28, 246 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 13 times for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really, as we saw on Twitter, as I saw on Twitter, I was covering the North Royalton Highland game. I was keeping tabs on this game as well. Really having the Penn State crowd really drawing on what he could do next year, not only with his arm, but his legs. He really did a good job in this game, taking over on the ground when needed. Give a shout out in this game to the Medina Bees defense. They really held Avon in check, especially in the second half. Keeping that offense in line and really provided a solid victory for the Bees. They are 2-0 on the year. So the Week 3 schedule goes as follows. Some big games as well this week. Brunswick will take on Highland. Euclid will take on Cleveland Heights. Solon travels to Stowe. Strongsville will host Brecksville. The big one, Menor at St. Edwards. And then Medina will host Wadsworth. So, again, we're going into the third week, Greater Cleveland Conference. Some great interconference matchups, some non-conference matchups. We're going to have Week 3 and Week 4 non-conference matchups in the Greater Cleveland Conference, and then we get into the conference schedule. But so far, fellas, some really interesting games. You cannot get a read, with the exception of Medina and maybe Menor, you cannot get a read on how these teams are so far, because if you look at, for example, Brunswick, a Euclid, and a Strongsville, and even a Solon, although 4 of those teams had a not-so-good Week 1, but came back and played a little better Week 2. So it's going to get interesting as we continue.
Yeah, nice job.
Yeah, definitely.
Some good games there.
Yeah, definitely want to, touch base on that Hudson Euclid game. That was a back-and-forth game pretty much all night, and a pretty miraculous last-second catch and run by Colin Pierce of Hudson, that was his second touchdown of the night, and I'll get to that when I break down the stats for that game in the Suburban League breakdown. But all indications were, as I was following that, beachside as I was on vacation. I was following that beachside on Twitter. That was a game that was coming down to the wire there, and I thought perhaps Euclid may sneak that one out, but Hudson, always game, always willing to make that, that last second throw, and you got to play the whole 48 minutes, and I think Euclid's figuring that out.
Yeah, and I'll get into the Avon Medina game and Midview Strongsville and Olmsted Falls and Brunswick. I mean, we've had some games going back and forth in these conferences, whether it's the Greater Cleveland Conference or the Southwestern Conference. But nice job, Josh, and really, Brunswick getting a win there, and Strongsville and Medina taking it to the Southwestern Conference a little bit. Going back and forth, they had some tough physical games, but the Greater Cleveland Conference came out on top there. So, without further ado, anything else for the Greater Cleveland Conference? Ed, do you have anything to say on the Greater Cleveland Conference before we go into the Southwestern Conference?
Great games. Great games really all around. I think Midview is really missing their starting quarterback. Otherwise, I think they would have given Strongsville a very good game. Coach Beal, up until this game, pretty much had Strongsville's number when he was at Brunswick. So He just didn't have enough bullets in the chamber to take out Strongsville. But impressive games all around, especially with Brunswick. I mean, obviously we're a little bit biased there, but what a bounce back from the loss against Avon. So congratulations to Coach Pinzoni on getting that win, and also for Medina for keeping their momentum going. I'm certainly looking forward to talking with Drew Allar here in a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt about that. A lot of good games. And like you said, Midview losing Ethan Surdock really hurt them, as he was a leader and kind of did it all offensively for that team. And we saw them last year in the playoffs against North Olmsted put up crazy numbers. They were on the short side of it, but they can put up some points when they have him in the game. So without further ado, we'll go to the Southwestern Conference. Avon taking on Medina, and Avon hasn't lost a game in almost 2 years in the regular season. Well, that came to an end as Medina wins 34-17. And really, Avon's first series in the game, they went 80 yards in 10 plays. Avon quarterback Sam DiTilio, he had 181 yards of total offense for Avon, and it was running back Gavin Earhart. He scored on a 2-yard score early on. So he had a score in the game. He had 16 carries for 94 yards. He got it done on the ground. And Drew Allar, who we're going to talk to at 8 o'clock, he had an answer every single time for Medina. As they took the lead in the second quarter, they really didn't look back, as Avon got down at 21-7 at one point. And they had a nice drive. And Ed will love the kicker, as Avon always had a great kicker. Nathaniel Vakos kicked a 37-yard field goal. He cut the lead to 21-10, but Medina just kept scoring. Every time Avon would put a points on the board, they would answer, and they win 34-17. Medina goes to 2-0. Avon 1-1 overall. Now Avon Lake, they got a big win versus Brecksville as they improved to 2-0 with a 41-14 win. Avon Lake, I mean, what can you say about them? They have been clicking on all cylinders, whether it's the defense or offense. They actually got out to a 41-0 lead before Brecksville would get on the board. Was Avon Lake quarterback Jeremy Ditzick. He finished with 242 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, while rushing for another. Wide receiver Matthew Stewie, he caught 9 passes for 149 yards and a touchdown. And Coach Kostelnik, after the game, he said he was not happy with the rushing offenses. Avon Lake teams, they always pounded the football and always knew how to run the ball. They had 15 yards in this entire game for Avon Lake, which is a little bit surprising. Most came through the air, but they ended up winning 41-14 there. Brecksville, they did fall to 0-2 in this game. Now, Brunswick versus Olmsted Falls, and I know Josh went over it a little bit. We'll tell you on the Olmsted Falls part of it. 28-21 was the final. Brunswick improved to 1-1, and Olmsted Falls drops to 1-1. Charlie Seelek, the quarterback for Olmsted Falls, he rushed 8 times for 48 yards, and he did have he passed for 160 yards. But let's give the Brunswick defense credit. They intercepted him 3 times on the night, and that, I mean, realistically, turnovers was the difference for Olmsted Falls. I mean, they only lost by 7 points, but those 3 turnovers were absolutely huge. It was Rocco Conti for Olmsted Falls. He did have success rushing for 80 yards on 13 carries, and Michael Kandow had 7 receptions for 78 yards. But Brunswick, too much, as they win 28-21. Both teams at 1-1. Now going Amherst versus Riverside, and first-year head coach Kenny Fritz, he was encouraged by his team's effort, and they didn't quit in this game as they lose 49-14 to Riverside. And senior running back Torrey Weatherspoon, he had some great speed on the night, and his longest run of the night was a 76-yard touchdown against Riverside. It was 21-7 in the second quarter. Then Weatherspoon would score one more time, this on a 35-yard run, but they were already up 49-7, and that was the 14th. So Weatherspoon had 2 touchdowns for Amherst as they fall to 0-2. Riverside gets the win there, and Amherst, in kind of one of those rebuilding modes with head coach Kenny Fritz. But he said after the game, he said, it was easy for our team once you get down in that fourth quarter just to give up. But they didn't give up, and they put another touchdown on the board. So, again, 49-14, the final Amherst losing there. Midview taking on Strongsville. Josh kind of touched on it. But the new quarterback for Midview, Mark Reed, he completed 16 of 26 attempts for 209 yards, and he did engineer 3 scoring drives. The Strongsville defense gave him pressure all night long. And really, he's trying to get this Midview team to put up some points, but they fall to Strongsville 28-12. 1-1 now for Strongsville, 0-2 for Midview. Now, this was an interesting game. Valley Forge coming off a big win, a 40-9 win versus Amherst. What would they do in North Ridgeville? North Ridgeville came off a tough loss to North Olmsted. They have a new head coach, Brian Morgan, there, and the Rangers, they rallied from a 6-point deficit with 6 minutes remaining, and they get their first win of the season, 21-20. It was Jacob Mass. He's the senior quarterback there. He rushed for 2 touchdowns, and the winning score against Valley Forge was a 7-yard touchdown run with 59 seconds left, and he gave them the go-ahead. He also did have a hand in 3 touchdowns for the Rangers, who had a 14-6 lead, but the Patriots came back and had some scores of their own. Manis, though, he did rush for 57 yards and threw for 68 yards on the night, while Dom Farago ran for 166 yards on 22 carries for North Ridgeville. And North Ridgeville did a nice job, really, the defense containing the two-headed monster for Valley Forge. So great job for the Rangers there as they get the win 21-20. So now Valley Forge 1-1, North Ridgeville at 1-1. Berea Mid-Park taking on Nordonia, and this was a great game as it came down to the final buzzer here, as it was 28-27. Nordonia does escape with a win there, and Luke Devens, he completed 8 of 17 passes for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Titans. The senior also led the ground game. He rushed for 69 yards on 16 carries and 1 touchdown as well. Safety Devin Johnson, though, he had a game-high 7 tackles and an interception for the Titans, and they had 4 sacks, forced 3 turnovers, including a fumble recovery and an interception, even though they did lose the game. I mean, all those turnovers, you think, they might put up some more points, but give Nordonia credit. Their defense was also impressive. Even though they gave up 27 points, they withstood some turnovers, and they get the win 28-27. Nordonia now 2-0. Berea Mid-Park at 0-2. D'Angelo Borders for the Titans also caught a touchdown in the game. Now another team that just moved to the Southwestern Conference, the Elyria team out there, and they're looking to get back in the thick of it as they come off their first win, in head coach Devlin Culliver. He said it's not always going to be pretty, but as long as we get a win, that's all that matters. In Elyria, they scored a pair of rushing touchdowns in the first half, and a 26-yard by Jasair Lucky in the first quarter. Then Isaiah Johnson, he ran for a 2-point conversion. And the second score was a 52-yard cutback to the left side by Jaden Gilbert. The Pioneers, their defense, they shut down the Bedford offense all the way to the third quarter. And in the end of the third quarter, Bedford did score late. But Elyria, the Pioneers, at 2-0, they get a 14-6 win. Bedford falls to 0-2. So the Pioneers get their second win overall this season. And the schedule, the Week 3 schedule, a lot of good games. As Avon Lake, they're 2-0. They take on Columbian. Glenville, they travel to Avon to face the Eagles there. St. Francis de Sales at 1-1. They take on Berea Mid-Park, the Titans at 0-2. North Ridgeville, the Rangers, they travel to Normandy, a team of 1-1 teams there. Elyria, 2-0, takes on Lorraine. Olmsted Falls 1-1. They take on the Truckers of Norwalk. Norwalk 0-2 so far in the year. Now Elyria Catholic 1-1. They take on Midview at 0-2. Amherst 0-2. They take on North Olmsted, the Eagles, a former foe in the Southwestern Conferences. North Olmsted's 1-1 on the year. And right now, overall, you have Avon Lake and Elyria at the top at 2-0. Avon, North Ridgeville, and Olmsted Falls at 1-1. And then Berea Mid-Park, Amherst, and Midview 0-2. So, guys, that's the Southwestern Conference there, and a lot of great games. Some tough losses for some teams that aren't used to losing, but right now the Shoremen looking impressive. Avon, it's a tough loss to Medina, but Medina's just an impressive team, and they've kept it up from last year into this season. And what are you going to do there other than just get back into it again against Glenville this week?
Yeah, going back to that Brunswick game at Olmsted Falls, I did have a friend that was at that game. And, Rob, you mentioned the 3 interceptions from the Olmsted Falls quarterback. And he kind of told me, like, once Brunswick kind of got the pressure on him, and it kind of hurt Olmsted Falls in the passing game. It's like the passing game virtually disappeared for them. Now, we know of Olmsted Falls not to be a real pass-happy team. But in order to win, you're going to have to be able to throw the ball. But once Brunswick got that pressure on, they just could not do anything passing-wise on offense. So that hurt them, and that helped force the turnovers there. And like you said, North Ridgeville, that's a huge game. I mean, they, not only for Valley Forge coming off a big win, North Ridgeville came off a huge loss. They got demolished in week 1. And to come back and win like that, got to give props to Coach Morgan and the team for actually just putting that game aside and coming out and really concentrating on this game, getting the win. That was excellent. I'd like to see that. And he was one of our nominees for the G&G Fitness Coach of the Week. We'll go over those results later at the end of the show. A lot of voting happened and a lot of interesting results for sure.
Yeah, and you could tell the North Ridgeville faithful really came out. And can't wait to get to the polls because, man, the polls really racked up some numbers and appreciate everybody getting involved and showing support for not only the players but the coaches as well, because the coaches put so much time and effort into this along with the players. So that's why we do that player and coaches poll. It's a lot of fun, and it's just crazy how many votes we got. I mean, over 1,000 between the two, not to mention all the great people to follow us. So that was a lot of fun to see.
No doubt.
Well, we're almost getting 8 o'clock, but we'll dive right into. Do we want to dive into the next conference and see how far we get before Drew joins us?
Actually,
here at
Rob, before we get into the Suburban League and GLC, why don't we just go over the results real quick of our polls?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
While we're waiting for Medina quarterback Drew Allar to come on with us. So we will start off with the G&G Fitness Coach of the Week. Our nominees were Ian Cost of Normandy, Brian Wisniewski of Solon, Brian Morgan of North Ridgeville, and Jeff Goff of Hudson. For this poll, we had 632 total votes, and with 50% of the votes, it went to North Ridgeville head coach Brian Morgan. So congratulations to him.
Nice.
Thanks for G&G Fitness for sponsoring that poll. The other poll for the Player of the Week for Week 2 is sponsored by RRT Productions. Our nominees were Jack Carterman from Aurora, Levi Ellis from Elyria Catholic, Jeremy Ditzick from Avon Lake, and Drew Allar from Medina. This was a little closer. We had 692 votes in this one. 49.3% of the vote went to Elyria Catholic's Levi Ellis. And then behind him, Drew Allar with 40% of the votes. So congratulations to Levi Ellis for winning our Week 2 RRT Productions Player of the Week. Good stuff. Thanks. Like Rob said, thanks everyone for voting. And we appreciate all the new follows that we got. So hopefully you can continue to enjoy what we like, continue to vote on these Player and Coach of the Week polls. They'll be up there every week.
Yeah, and I just had them up so everybody could see them, and just crazy how many votes and actually how many followers we got this weekend. I mean, it all of a sudden went nuts. I kept getting updates on my phone, and I'm like, what is going on? But it's pretty fun to see all the support, Coach Morgan's getting, like you said, at North Ridgeville. That was a little bit surprising, especially the way the running attack was going on for Valley Forge. I mean, they're a tough team. They were really impressive. That offensive line against Amherst, they looked pretty impressive on that night. But give credit to North Ridgeville defense. They came back after getting handled by North Olmsted and came back and got a nice win there.
Yeah, no doubt. I was a little surprised by that result. No lie on that one. Especially what happened with Week 1 with both teams. But it just goes to show every game counts, and
Yep.
you can never count out an opponent. They're two comparable sized schools, and obviously North Ridgeville didn't take too kindly as to what happened in week 1, and they came out at it. So congratulations to the Rangers there. So, and without further ado, speaking of tough competitors, we do have Medina quarterback and Penn State commit Drew Allar on with us today. Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hey, congratulations on your win against Avon. Avon, a really impressive team. They haven't lost in the regular season in 2 years. Talk about what it was like, the atmosphere. I know you were at home, so you had to love having all the student section was amped up and the home crowd. How fun was that to play in front of that crowd on Friday night?
It was super fun. It was definitely the most exciting atmosphere I've played in so far at Medina. I mean, I'm pretty sure our athletic director said there was like 6,800 fans there. So it was pretty cool to see just everybody come out and support Medina football. And then Avon fans traveled really well too. So it was really cool to see both sides of the stands packed.
Hey, Drew, you guys had a tremendous run last year through the playoffs. It's not very often a public school can take out 2 private schools. How much of that momentum have you carried over into this season?
I think we've carried momentum, but I think it's just more in our confidence, really. Like we're a super confident team, but we also know that we're going to have to work for everything that we get this year because we're not going to be overlooked by teams anymore. And I think that just makes us even hungrier as a team, just proving that last year wasn't a mistake and that we can do it again this year.
Drew, we've been following you for the last couple of years. You got to obviously going to Penn State. Congratulations on that. My question is about your preparation and how, you guys are a team that really pride yourself on execution, clean execution, and things like that. And when you're in that rhythm, is it even more so harder for you to kind of dial it back so you're not throwing 500-600 yards a game? The coach having to kind of keep you in check with the arm and everything like that?
No, not really. I think our preparation is great. Me and Coach Laird and a couple of the receivers watch film before every practice for about like an hour and a half. So we get all the offense on the same page, which really helps going into the game. And these first 2 weeks, I mean, we played pretty good offensively, but we didn't execute as much as we would have liked to. So it's nice to see that we're still winning games and we're not playing at our best performance right now.
Drew, talk about, you said that the first 2 weeks of the season, guys aren't there yet on the offensive end, but your defense has really nailed down some games for you these first 2 weeks. Talk about, those guys on defense. I know you're offensive, you're leading the offensive charge, but a defense for a team like you guys can really help go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has made us a lot better throughout this whole offseason because we're starting like 11 seniors on defense, and that have been like 2 or 3 year starters. So we have a lot of experience on that side of the ball, and the coaching staff is a really good coaching staff too. So they make really good adjustments at half. I mean, I don't think they've let up a halftime score after halftime yet this year. So they just do a really good job of bend but don't break and make adjustments to help us get the ball back on offense so we can help go put up points.
Now talk about your offensive weapons. How you've been with this team, or some of these players for probably a really long time. What connection have you built, and how special is it? Especially last year, like Ed mentioned, in the playoffs, you had a really nice run, and now it's carrying over into this season. How special is it with some of your friends that probably are on offense that you built that connection with, and Coach Laird? I mean, you guys are high flying and throwing the football, and I'm sure you're enjoying it, and you don't have a problem slinging the ball around the field with some of your buddies, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's super fun. I couldn't ask for a better group of friends to just play high school football with, really. But as far as our connection, we worked really hard together in the off season, and we have the relationship where they can come up to me and talk to me about what they're seeing and what they think we should be running, and I can do the same with them. Like just to get on the same page. So we're really like a tight knit group, and we can I call it constructive criticism, like just making adjustments in game to help us get that next step in front of the defense, and just make some small adjustments that can really help us in the long run.
Absolutely.
Hey, Drew, you guys got a tough Wadsworth team coming up. It's a Medina County rival. Always a good game when you play the Grizzlies. Without giving too much away, what are you guys looking to key on as you focus on this week?
I think we're just looking to come out and execute our game plan a lot more efficiently. Wadsworth's a really well-coached team and a really tough team. And like you said, our rivalry just being in the same county and stuff, it definitely carries more weight to the game. Just that adds to the game, really. So we're just looking to come out and execute our game plan and be really efficient offensively and not really stall out on some drives, because I feel like we've left some touchdowns out on the field these past 2 games, and if we can clean that up and our defense keeps playing the way they're playing, we can be really good.
Drew, real quick, you're leading the charge on this kind of renaissance of Medina Bees football. You're actually, along with your teammates, has taken Medina Bees to some levels they've never been to before. How does it feel personally for you to kind of establish a legacy Medina Bees football that for a lot of years hasn't been there, and you're one of the key cogs in that renaissance, I guess?
Yeah, it's really cool. I think we're all really thankful to be a part of it, just because I remember like the 2016 senior class, like that was really special and had Jimmy Daw, and I just remember watching them and seeing how much fun they had on the field together. And I feel like we've definitely carried that on from that class. And I'm just looking forward to going out with the rest of the season and having fun with all my friends, and hopefully just doing what we did in the playoffs last year and make a deep run.
How important was it for you to make your decision and pick a college? A lot of kids, I think it is a tough decision. You go through recruiting and all that. How nice is it for you to really put that aside and focus on the season at hand, especially with a special season that you guys have going on right now?
Yeah, it was a super big relief to me, just because everything kind of came in at once for me, like as far as all the offers and stuff. So once I announced I was committed to Penn State, but it really slowed down for me. So it was a big relief, and I could just focus on getting better and hitting the weight room, getting bigger, stronger, faster with all my teammates, and just get on the same page as them. We watch a lot of film together, just because I feel like you have to know, like, you can talk through film, like what you want to do on the in a game plan, and go out and execute it with them, and then watching film on the sidelines, just seeing what the defense is doing and what we should do to adjust to it. Just being on the same page with the offense is a really big key thing for me, and I felt like after I committed, like I had more time to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, now the big decision is no longer where you're going to school, but what you're going to go to school for. Have you given any thoughts to what you're going to major in at Penn State, or are you going to kind of take it at one month at a time there in Happy Valley?
I don't know what I want to major in yet, but I know I'm going to early enroll there in January, so I think I might go in undecided, and then hopefully after that first semester I have something picked out by then.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
You got plenty of time.
Hey, Drew, I just want to say it's not. I'm sure you're probably aware of this, but it's not very often that a quarterback from Medina County gets a Power 5 Division I offer. So we're, on behalf of all of us, we're really proud of you. From the three of us have played in the county when we were younger, and we've, as following football over the years, it just doesn't happen very often. So you're a special talent, man, and we're looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes for you, and especially after high school.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Ed, you could tell him, Drew, the three of us he's talking about, we all played at Brunswick. So if you can, take it easy on them later on this season, please.
All right, they're good.
And you know what, Drew? For me, the guy that didn't go to Brunswick and played in Dayton, have a game, buddy. Just really. I mean, the whole Brunswick thing. I'm the odd man out here, so I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking time. I know, you know, with studying, with school and film and the game coming up this week, that you're probably pretty busy. So we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. And we'll definitely be following you and look forward to seeing you, obviously, later in the season.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No
Yeah,
problem.
good luck to you the rest of the season.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, that's Drew Allar, the quarterback for the Medina Bees, joining us here on Sports on Tap. And what a nice kid. And like I said, he's really busy, and I'm sure coming on our show for a little bit, you know, means a lot to us, especially. But he's ready. He's ready to rock and roll.
That dude's putting up numbers. He's you know, he's playing like a man amongst boys. He did last year, and he's continuing that, and he's really doing good things for that Medina program. So you know, like you said, Rob. It was awesome for him to come on. We look forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes for him and the Bees, because I think big things are ahead for them.
Yeah, I mean,
And the fact that
go ahead,
he
John.
immediately said that these first 2 weeks they haven't played well is, I mean, if you're in the GCC, that's not a very good omen, because you can only get better, and they're playing pretty good football right now in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
I know that I know for a fact that he is not looking past anybody, nor is Coach Laird. But I think the whole conference has October 1st circled with an away game at Mentor, because that will probably end up being the de facto conference championship game. With how things have started so far in the conference, and from what we know about the teams, even from last year coming into this year. So we'll you know, we still got a couple of weeks to go before we can get to that point, but that's going to be quite the collision when those two teams face off at Medina.
Yeah, that's gonna be crazy to see that game. That's gonna be, and I mean, Menor has already clashed with some teams earlier this year, and they have one coming up that you guys will go over here in a little bit. But you know, what a great interview, and glad we got him on just to talk to him for a little bit. You know, one thing I almost was ready to ask, but it was just too good. You know, the way we were going was, you know, what kind of quarterback do you think he bases his game off of? Because he, you know, at first I thought he was that pocket passer, but I have seen him scramble and run as well. You know, but man, he can throw the football. That's for sure. He has really good arm strength, and I think you're going to see some long passes throughout this season because, you know, like you said, when you build those connections throughout the years, you could tell he's on the same page of his wide receivers and his offense. So it's going to be fun to see what they do this season.
No doubt.
All right, so do we want to jump back into to the conference play? Or are we going to do the top 25? What do we want to jump into next year?
We can do the top 25 real quick.
All right. I'll get that ready so we can jump into that. All right, so you guys had a chance to talk to Billy Kosco about his top 25, and I'm sure there were some movements there in the top 10. So now let's go to Billy Kosco with N.E.O Sport or N.E.O Zone High School Sports, and as he gives us his top 25.
All right, welcome back to Sports on Tap. This is Ed Dick, Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy. At this point, Rob Troutman is on assignment for at the moment, but we are here with Billy Kosco of N.E.O Zone High School Sports. On Twitter, it's at N.E.O Zone HS, and he's going to be giving us his top 10, just like he has in the past couple of weeks. I know we missed him last week, but we're certainly glad to have you back on this week. Billy,
sure.
So welcome back to Sports on Tap, and let's get into it. It's we're now going into week 3, so now we have the third iteration of your rankings, and I know you have a top 25 plus on the cusp. We can get to that here in a minute, but let's start with the top 10, and we'll roll from there. Go ahead, Billy.
For sure, yeah. So at number 10, we have Aurora. year. They're coming off a double-digit win against St. Vincent St. Mary's, so they are looking very good, and they've jumped 13 spots in 2 weeks into the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I cover the Suburban League for Sports on Tap, and one of the things that's really stood out to me was not only Alex Moore's play, but the wide receiver Jack Hardiman. He's been really special these last couple weeks. I think the first week he had 3 all-purpose touchdowns in every facet of the game. This week he had 2 touchdowns as well. So he's really coming along and providing a really good spark for that offense and a reliable target for Alex Moore. And if they keep playing like this, they're going to be flirting with the top 5. Just given how hard that schedule gets from the Suburban League going into the American Division this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, and they'll have a few games here that are very winnable, maybe by a lot. Coming up, they got Twinsburg. Copley is improving, and then they got Cuyahoga Falls, I think, after that. So they've got a nice little stretch here to really take over and take control of their season.
Yeah.
And then at number 9, we have Massillon, Washington. One of those schools that is just perennially in that top 10. They're coming off a big win against Glen Oak after taking a tough loss to Pickering Central in their opening night, and they'll keep their gauntlet going with Reynoldsburg this week, which is out of our coverage area, and your guys' too. So, and then number 8, we have Avon Lake, who's coming off a very impressive win behind Jeremy Ditzick, and going up against Brecksville. They won 41-14, and they're looking like a real serious threat this season.
Yeah, Avon Lake is they're also a perennial powerhouse in the Southwestern Conference, and they had a really good win over Strongsville in week 1, and Brecksville is also no joke. So 2 really solid wins for Avon Lake. Coach Kostelnik out there is keeping the train moving. He's an alum. He's an alum there, and went to Mount Union, had a very successful career there, and came back to Avon Lake and is picking up probably where he left off as a player, as a head coach there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're looking very good, that is for sure. And then at number 7, we have Avon. So just going right down the road there. They're 1-1 coming off that tough loss against Medina, which I'm sure they're disappointed about their effort, but Medina we'll get to later is just very, very good this year. Yeah, Avon, other than that setback, they've looked solid, especially with that week 1 win. So.
Yeah, you look. Oh, sorry, Ed.
Please.
I was going to say, you look at a program like Avon, and having anything in the loss column this early in the season is rare. And I'm sure it's not something that anybody who looks at these rankings would have expected to see. Do you expect Avon to respond in this being the Medina loss, being just as we're going to get to the fact that Medina is just that good? And maybe Avon just did not have the horses, or just did not play to the level they should have when playing Medina?
Yeah, they'll definitely bounce back. They've got the talent. They're a very well-rounded team. This was their first regular season loss since 2018, which is pretty crazy to think about. So they've got Glenville this week, who's a very solid team. I think they're going to be really good within the next couple of years. They're still solid, but I think Avon should be able to bounce back against them this week and should round out the rest of the season in pretty solid shape.
Excellent.
All right. And then we have at number 6, Stowe. Stowe had a nice win against Barberton this week, who's a team that's not quite in our top 25 yet, but they're a very solid team regardless. And they've just got talent all over the place, as we've seen these first couple of weeks. And they got a big matchup against Solon coming up, and they look to improve to 3-0 after that one.
Yeah, Stowe's been really impressive all beginning of the year, and we talked about it in our preview show that if Stowe got their talent level is always there, and the problem maybe with last year was there was so much talent in the National Division, the Suburban League, on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and I think this is the opportunity for a team like a Stowe and even like a Hudson to really kind of shine in and be those guiding forces in the National Division for the Suburban League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then at number 5 is Chardon, the defending Division III champions. I was out at that game on Saturday, and they just mopped the floor with Bookdole, who it was an up-and-coming team, but yeah, Chardon really took care of business, won 42-0, and their defense held Bookdale to negative yards up until the fourth quarter. So it was a very impressive showing for the Hilltoppers this week, and they bumped up a spot into the top 5.
I'll jump in on Chardon here. Chardon, as you said, defending Division III state champions. It's not going to get any easier next week going against Ursuline, which is a powerhouse in the Youngstown area. 2 very impressive wins to start their season off before they get into conference play, with a little bit of a break with New Philly in there much later in the season. But you couldn't ask for a better start from the defending champions.
Yeah, and Coach Hewitt does a great job up there. He's one of my favorite coaches in the area, real fiery and great leader. And he's going to take this team far, I think, once again this season. So it'll be fun to watch for sure. Then at number 4, we have Medina, who took care of business against Avon this week. They're looking like the real deal. I also covered that game this week and saw Drew Allar just go crazy for 4 touchdowns. That kid's unbelievable.
Yeah, they are one of the top teams in Northeast Ohio this year, Billy. Now, everyone talks about Drew Allar, but one thing that I think with the Bees that's kind of underrated or under the radar is their defense. You were there live covering it. Talk about their defense and how they were able to, kind of hold Avon to a minimal amount of damage on the offensive end.
For sure, yeah, because Avon went up against Brunswick the previous week, and they really had a great showing on offense, and Medina was able to hold them. They've got players like Matt Spatney on defense. They've got lockdown corners, Keon Johnson. So they are able to really, pressure their opponents. That was the one big question mark coming into this year. We knew they had talent on defense. They just had to put it all together. So, to see them come out and hold Avon under 20 points was definitely an impressive feat for them and should give them some momentum going forward.
Yeah, and we should mention that Drew Allar had, about 250 yards passing, but he had 100 yards, almost 100 yards rushing, if not that.
Yeah, something that's really underrated about his game is he's able to break free out of the pocket, and he's pretty fast. He's also really agile, and he's hard to bring down. Brought out a couple spin moves the other night. So yeah, he had the Penn State fans drooling over him with that performance. So yeah, he looks really good.
Good.
And then number 3, we have Archbishop Hogan. They were a number 1 team, and this is the first time in at least a year and a half of doing the rankings where they've dropped out of that number 1 spot. They went up against a tough opponent, obviously, the number 10 ranked team in the nation, Bergen Catholic, but they lost 42-7. It was a pretty tough showing for them, so they'll look to bounce back this year.
I wonder if that's some of that inexperience finally showing a little bit without having a 4-year starter and Shane Ham and that very veteran defense that they had the last couple of years. This team that they played is absolutely no joke. Obviously, you don't see Hogan get manhandled really ever. So we'll see how they bounce back.
For sure. Yep, and it'll be interesting to see how that inexperience can, if that group can, come back and rally after that tough loss for sure. At number 2, we have Mentor out of the GCC. They had another nice win this weekend, a very close one up against St. Ignatius. They were able to win 28-26. I think Evan Harper had a big special teams touchdown for them to secure that win. So, Mentor once again looks very good and be a D1 contender this year, no doubt.
Yeah, I was following this game while I was covering the North Royalton Highland game this past week, and I was keeping tabs on this game. And it looked like Mentor was going to kind of run off with it. They were up 27-0 or 21-7, excuse me, into the second quarter. And then Ignatius, kind of made that run. They were able to get some stops on defense, and they were able to score some points. And it was Evan Harper, his 92-yard kickoff return for a touchdown really sealed the deal, and they came away with a 28-26 win. So that's. Even though Ignatius is 0-2, it's still Ignatius, and they're going to put forth, an effort. They're still one of the top teams in the area. So, whenever you get a win against them, it's a big win.
Yeah, no doubt. Ignatius, they're a tough 0-2 because they obviously play one of the tougher schedules around, and I think it was a really, even though they lost, I don't think the coach would say so, but I still think it was a good consolation effort because a lot of people actually expected them to get beaten pretty bad by Mentor. So they came out and put up a good fight for sure. And then number 1, we have St. Edward, who is actually Mentor's opponent this week. So we're going to have a 1 versus 2 clash this coming Saturday, which should be fun. Eagles coming off a win against Rock Creek from Maryland, who's a up-and-coming program, a newer program that's just kind of playing some of the top competition around the region. They're able to get that 56-18 win. They look to go up against Medina this week and maintain that number 1 spot that they just earned in this week's rankings.
There it is, folks. The top 10 after week 2 of competition. Very, very, a little bit of movement there, but not a whole lot of surprises, except for Aurora jumping up 5 spots to get to the top 10. That was a big jump there. Going through the rest of our schools from your top 25 there, Brunswick from the Greater Cleveland Conference with a big win over Olmsted Falls comes in at number 15. Hudson with a astounding victory over Euclid checks in at number 17.
Got lucky there.
Olmsted Falls with the loss of Brunswick falls 1 spot from 21 to 22. Euclid drops 4 spots. They are 0-2. A heartbreaker to Hudson. And then Medina Highland is 2-0. They jump up a spot to number 24. And then on the cusp, there is one team from the Great Lakes Conference. That would be the Rocky River Pirates. They are number 4 on the cusp, and then Nordonia with a big win, not so much in the points department, but that's a really good opponent they played, and then they beat. So Nordonia is number 5 on the cusp there as well. So an excellent job as always, Billy. Thank you for thanks for popping on and talking to us about your top 10, and then and then going through the rest of it. And we look forward to seeing what happens after week 3 here at Sports on Tap and at N.E.O Zone HS as well. So thank you very much for coming on, Billy, and we will talk to you next week.
Awesome. Yeah, great talking with you guys. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks, Billy.
Yep.
Thanks, Billy.
Are still looking for some footing in the Great Lakes Conference, but this was a tremendous, a really, really good cross-division matchup between these two teams. This was our SOT co-featured game of the week, and Rob was there for it. So, Rob, if you want to break the game down for us.
Well, a lot of this game was on the ground, and of course I missed the first touchdown that Fairview had. It went for 55 yards. And the running back for Fairview, and now my mind went blank on his name, but I'll get his name up. But he went 55 yards for a touchdown, and the Fairview went for 2 early on, and they did get it. So they were up 8-0 in this game, and really both teams, were trying to run the football. And then it looked like Parma, they went with a two quarterback system. One quarterback could throw the football, one would run, and they started giving Fairview a few problems. They started moving the ball, but the Fairview defense was impressive early on. But with the heat, a lot of these guys were really having problems with the heat and cramping and dehydration. So, it was kind of one of those things that, both teams, I think, were having the same issues on the side of the ball with cramping. It didn't happen a ton in the first half, and not a ton of scoring early on. But, you could tell right here, Parma was going for it, trying to air it out a little bit, but the coverage was really good by Fairview. And Parma would move the ball a little bit, but give credit to the defense. I mean, Fairview, that was a nice face mask right there by Fairview. But Fairview on punt return, they had 2 turnovers, 2 fumbles in their own territory, and Parma did not capitalize. And I thought that was a big part of the game for Fairview, was not being able, for Parma rather, because the punt return team for Fairview, man, they were 2 fumbles in their own territory, and even the coaches said, get away from the football, just let it go. They didn't care, and they weren't able to score out of it. So, that was a big key in the game. Right before half, Fairview tried to drive the football. They went around. The quarterback went around the corner, hit the pylon, and I mean, it was so close that the referee said he stepped out of bounds, and that could have put Fairview up with a 15. I think it was 15-6 or 7 at that point, and that hurt Fairview. You could tell they were pretty disappointed, and different angles did show that it looked like he was in bounds. Tough to call, though, especially at that speed. So I know it was a tough thing to do for the referee. He's put in a tough situation, but he made the call with no time left on the clock. And, so they went into half, and Fairview still had the lead. Parma really struggled offensively in that first half. They started getting something going there in the second half.
Yeah, it was Zach Wilson with the way he opened up with that 55-yard touchdown run for Fairview. And you're right, Rob. Tough call on the ref's part there. High school doesn't get the benefit of instant replay like a lot of other like college and the pros. So in high school ball, you got to live with the results, and if it doesn't go your way, you got to find a way to overcome it. Parma, Nick Bonus and Keanu Crawl. That's an interesting system that they have going on there, but it's done well for them so far. They've been able to keep teams off balance, and it's helped them out. Rob, as you noted in your story on SportsOnTapPodcast.com, their first 2-0 start since 2010. So that's really, really good. A school as storied as Parma is, it's good to see them. It's good to see them getting a couple wins into the win column going into their third week. So a great job covering that game for us, Rob. Thank you to Fairview and Parma for a great game, and able to get some coverage for those two teams. And it's always a good thing when we're able to spread the love from the coverage standpoint there.
Yeah, and Coach Burns was so nice afterwards and really excited because they were, Parma's now 2-0 and they haven't been 2-0 since 2010. So he talked to us after the game, and you could really see he's trying to change that program around and make these kids believe. A lot of them, have played for a while and haven't had this kind of success, and watching it from their standpoint, and it was just a fun game to cover. You could tell it went back and forth. Both these teams, I think, were pretty evenly matched. But like I have there, 8-7 was the score at half. And Parma ended up winning this game, and they scored with, I think it was a minute left. So, back and forth and a very physical game, Ed, and a lot of fun. But congratulations to Parma on being 2-0, and we'll see what Fairview does the rest of the season.
Absolutely. So with the win, Parma goes to 2-0 on their season, and Fairview drops to 0-2. So we'll get back into the Great Lakes Conference, the rest of the conference. There was another cross-division matchup between the Lakewood Rangers and the Bay Rockets. Lakewood comes away with a 29-10 victory over Bay. Hakeem Koren picked up right where he left off in week 1. He rushed 25 times for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
On top of its 285-yard effort last week. Lakewood finished this game strong. They finished it on a 21-0 run after trailing 10-7 in the third quarter. So, Coach Tony for Lakewood's really got the Rangers playing well, and Hakeem Koren is playing in that offensive line are really making some noise here in that conference. For the rest of the East Division, Buckeye gets a 37-7 victory over Conneaut. That's a big, that's a long way they had to travel to play that game. But Cayman Marshall had an interception on the defense. He had a 44-yard touchdown reception and a 52-yard touchdown run to lead the Bucks there. Normandy and Cuyahoga Falls, two teams that traditionally have, in recent years, have not had a whole lot of success. Normandy gets their first victory in the regular season since 2018. Congratulations to the Invaders, 33-14 victory over the Black Tigers of Cuyahoga Falls. Elijah Gray was a man. He had 4 rushing touchdowns that covered 28, 65, 21, and 58 yards. So just I watched each of those runs, and he was bouncing off defenders, he was pulling away, stiff arming, juking. He had it all going on against the Black Tigers. So Ian Koss gets the first win in his first win for the Invaders, and again their first victory since 2018. So congratulations to the Invaders. They improved to 1-1 overall in their matchup here. We talked about this game earlier. Valley Forge falls to North Ridgeville 21-20. Eddie Starks had 2 touchdown rushes. Kentrell Marks had 1 receiving touchdown. Unfortunately for Valley Forge, they could not convert their point after attempts, whether it was field goal or the 2-point conversion. They weren't able to consistently convert those, and that's what ended up being the difference in this game. North Ridgeville, as Ron mentioned earlier, took the lead with just under a minute left in the game, and Valley Forge was not able to get into position to take the game back. So Valley Forge drops to 1-1. North Ridgeville improves to 1-1. This was the next matchup in the East was a Saturday contest between Villa Angela St. Joseph's with new head coach Jeff Rotsky taking on Holy Name. That game was played at North Royalton. And what seemed to be the theme over the course of this weekend was the hot temperatures and how tired the kids got, how much they were cramping up, and unfortunately for Notre Dame, Holy Name, they were not able to handle that as well as VASJ was. They lose 34-16 to the Vikings. The highlight was an Eric Jones Jr. touchdown pass from quarterback Javon Williams. But outside of that, this game was dominated by the Vikings on the line and through the skill. So Holy Name drops to 1-1 in their season. Moving over to the West Division, Elyria Catholic had a wild game against Sandusky Perkins. Elyria Catholic won 68-42. Levi Ellis, as we talked about earlier, he was the Great Lakes Conference Player of the Week, and he did win the poll for G&G Fitness Player of the Week. He had 233 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Elyria Catholic gave up 35 points in the second quarter alone, but after that, they dominated. They really took control and ran away with this game over Sandusky Perkins. So big win for Elyria Catholic. They improved to 1-1 on the season. Rocky River put up 45 points against Firelands, a 45-14 victory for the Pirates. Tommy Beebe had 16 carries for 137 yards and 4 touchdowns. That dude is a beast. He's a Wake Forest commit at linebacker, and he is certainly proving that out so far this year. Rocky River with the win improves to 2-0. Green took on North Olmsted. Unfortunately for the Eagles, they were grounded pretty efficiently by the Bulldogs. 14 43-14 victory for Green. North Olmsted did get touchdown runs by Jared Kelly and Eric Wasson in the loss. With that loss, North Olmsted drops to 1-1. And Green, I believe, improves to 2-0. Rhodes took down Westlake. Rhodes has played very well this year so far, and they certainly took it to Westlake. They were up big in this game. Westlake avoided a shutout with an impressive 47-yard touchdown run by Matthew Porcelli, but that wasn't enough. Westlake falls to Rhodes 30-7, and Westlake drops to 0-2 in the conference. Overall. The player of the week was Levi Ellis, running back for Leary Catholic, and our coach of the week was Ian Kost from Normandy. So congratulations to both of those schools and their representation there. We'll get a quick look. Let's get a quick look at the standings here for the Great Lakes Conference since I have it up, and it just looks cool. So we'll share it.
Why not? And yeah, it's been a fun year so far with your conference. Some teams, that I'm interested in is Lakewood and Parma. I mean, how about those two teams? Lakewood, in the Southwestern Conference, they struggled a little bit, but so far this season, they've really done a nice job, especially with their running game. I mean, it's crazy how well their running game has been doing in Lakewood.
No doubt. Hakeem Corin's picking up right where he left off from last year, and he's done a great job. Buckeye picking up where they left off as well. When they were co-champions in 2019, when they in their first year in the conference. Parma again impressive on the West Division. Rocky River, I think it's Rocky River's division to lose so far. They've played very well, but it's going to be a logjam between Bay, North Olmsted, Leary Catholic. Fairview and Westlake have a little bit of catching up to do, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on there. So quickly, we'll go to the Week 3 schedule. Bay is 1-1. They will travel to University School. Copley will host Buckeye. Buckeye's 2-0 in that contest. Elyria Catholic is 1-1. They will travel to Midview, who's 0-2. Fairview will take on Lakewood in cross-division play. Fairview is 0-2. Lakewood is 2-0. Holy Name is 1-1. They will travel to Riverside, who is 1-1. North Ridgeville is 1-1. They will travel to Normandy, newly minted winners there. We'll see it at Byers Field. West Geauga is 1-1. They will take on Parma, who is 2-0. Rocky River is 2-0. They will take on Valley Forge at Byers Field. North Olmsted is 1-1. They will travel to Amherst, looking for their first win. And Westlake, 0-2, will be looking for their first win at Warrensville Heights, who is 1-1. So that is the breakdown for the Great Lakes Conference there. Any thoughts before I throw it over to my colleague, my cohort, my compadre?
I mean, I like what I'm seeing. I think it's going to be a really fun conference to watch, especially with Rocky River, and Buckeye right there. How long is Parma going to hang around in Lakewood, really? Both those teams playing really well. And I thought, Parma, watching their game, offensively, not everything was clicking. There were penalties and everything going on, but they still played really well, and Coach Burns, I thought got his team ready to play defensively. So if they can stick in the game like they did against Fairview, they stuck around for a while, and then in that third and fourth quarter, you could tell their confidence was gaining a little bit. But there's a lot of really good teams. I mean, Lakewood getting a win over Bay, I think that's pretty impressive, especially what Lakewood has gone through. So I'm having a lot of fun watching that conference, and I'm interested to see how that's going to go throughout the season.
No doubt. So week three's coming for the GLC. But before we get there, let's shoot it over to the Suburban League with I'll say it again because I can't say it enough, my cohort, my colleague, my compadre, Sean Duffy for the Suburban League.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure to be here. We're going to go over Week 2 in the Suburban League. We'll first start out with the one of the cross division matchups in which our own Josh Jeffy was a personal spectator to. The man, the myth, the legend, Josh Jeffy did attend the Highland North Royalton game. Go ahead and take it away, Josh, with your thoughts and your breakdown of what you saw Friday night at North Royalton.
Well, first of all, I'll go on the record in saying Serpentine Chevrolet Stadium in North Royalton is one of my favorites. It's a beautiful stadium. I love the setting. So it's definitely in my top three. We can discuss the other two later on on another episode. But yeah, this game featured two teams that were trying to form an identity. It had a playoff feel to it. The first half of the game, it was a virtual chess match. The game started off with an interception by North Royalton. They drove the ball down, scored a touchdown. Highland did come back to tie the game up and actually take the lead, and the score at halftime was 14-7. I'll go on another limb here on the record and say Aaron Phillips from Highland throws one of the best balls. He's got such a good arm. It's a nice, clean throw, a nice foul, very accurate. So he was really on the money. In the third quarter, he was able to throw a nice screen pass, and Highland was able to get in 21-7. At that point, with 3:45 left of the third quarter, I really thought that Highland was going to put it away. But give credit to Michael Piazza and the North Royalton Bears and their offense. They came back and got the game real close. They actually scored two more touchdowns in the fourth quarter. It was Piazza to Vincent Koprowski. They actually totaled 3 touchdowns, the two of them together on the night. And then Avery Gurney for Highland was able to seal the deal late in the fourth with a 28-yard field goal. And that ended the game. And Highland, after the game, Coach Gibbons, was telling his team, they fought through some things. But he also told his team everyone needs to get better, including the coaching staff. They got a big game coming up this week as they travel to Brunswick. Tough loss, though, for North Royalton. They really were kind of out of it in the third quarter, but really came back. So it's, you don't like to have moral victories, but if there is one, this is such a thing. They were able to come back late in the game and make it real close, and they're going to do well, and I think this is a game they're going to build on. Yeah,
I mean, Highland, you're right about Aaron Phillips. I mean, if it's not with his arm, with 2 touchdowns and he totaled 148 yards passing, on the ground he had 116 yards rushing and a touchdown as well. So he was, as that offense went Friday night, the offense went, I should say. Obviously Michael Piazza, he's been doing this for the last couple of years now, putting up numbers, putting the team on his back. Shout out to Vincent Koprowski for those 3 touchdown catches. It seems to be having a good connection with Piazza. Just came up a little bit short at the end there. But, I mean, again, like you mentioned, at any point in time in this game, a lot of people would have counted North Royalton out, and kudos to them for, digging down and bringing them back into that game. Also here on the scoreboard, we'll go ahead and put the scoreboard up here for the American Division. Aurora got a huge win over St. Vincent St. Mary, 31-14. My Player of the Week nominee, Jack Hardiman, did it again for the second week in a row. 1 touchdown reception and 2 rushing touchdowns. Also, on the defensive side of the ball, he was effective in having 1 interception. As good as Jack Hardiman was, obviously Alex Moore was throwing in the ball, playing very well, playing, again, second week in a row where those two have kind of had a really good connection, and they've been able to kind of put some distance there. But, you can't look at this score 31-14 against a team like St. Vincent St. Mary and not talk about Aurora's defense, specifically linebacker Ryan Papish. He had 12 tackles on the game, 2 tackles for loss. Mentioned Jack Hardiman's contribution on the defensive side of the ball with 1 interception. Just an all-around great performance by the Aurora Greenmen as they get a 31-14 victory. Our other cross-division matchup saw the Stowe Monroe Falls Bulldogs travel and take on Barberton. And this was an interesting game because as I was following, again, each side, because I was interested to see if Shandon Lee from Barberton was able to get, will be able to put on another performance like he did last week. He did end up finishing 20 of 47 for 280 yards and a touchdown pass. And their Barberton running back Cameron Macon did have 2 rushing touchdowns. But the real story here is Stowe and how good that Stowe offensive unit is right now. You know, take out of the fact that they didn't have their starting running back, Xavier Preston. He had cramps, much like a lot of players found themselves having Friday night. So the backup, Sal Ramito, chipped in with 133 yards and 2 touchdown rushes to go along with Owen Bainbridge's 16 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown as well. You know, they're clicking on cylinders. They can beat you on the ground. They can beat you in the air. Owen Bainbridge is having himself a great, start to this season. The Stowe Monroe Falls Bulldogs look really good in the National Division. And Barberton, look, you run into these teams, especially when you're crossing the divisions here. But Barberton's, putting up some impressive numbers. I don't think they're an easy out for anybody, and they're going to probably rebound next week when they in their game. Copley traveled to take on hosted Firestone, and this was the Preston Taylor show all night. He had 210 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, boys. 5 touchdowns. He was a leading candidate for the Suburban League Player of the Week, but I had to give it to Jack Hardiman, just the effectiveness there. But Preston Taylor, with a fantastic effort, given the Copley 47-20 victory over Firestone. Normandy hosted Cuyahoga Falls, and as Ed mentioned, they were able to get a 33-14 victory over the Black Tigers of Cuyahoga Falls. Eastlake North traveled to take on Revere and came out with a 33-12 victory. CVCA was able to blank Kent Roosevelt 28-0. And Talmadge, the big story here, 56-7 win over Ellett. That was Ty Hurst, another leading candidate for Player of the Week. Ty Hurst, 404 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 0. Count them, 0 interceptions. I'm pretty sure no one from the other team even got close to the ball to touch the ball. It was all pinpoint accuracy. Congratulations to the Talmadge Blue Devils as they get a 56-7 victory over Ellett. Ty Hurst, again, 404 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Moving on to the National Division. As we mentioned early on in the show, Hudson got a last-second victory thanks in large part to Jagger Pally's touchdown pass late in the game to Colin Pierce. As we mentioned, Jagger Pally finished 23 of 36, 338 yards, 4 touchdowns. Colin Pierce, 96 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown. My Coach of the Week nominee was Jeff Goff because, they were tied, and he had an opportunity, and he decided to throw it deep, and it worked out. So anytime you get the walk-off victory, you got to get a Coach of the Week nod. So congratulations to the Hudson Explorers with a 40-34 victory. Nordonia hosted Berea Mid Park, and as Rob mentioned, during that game was a back-and-forth game. Nordonia was able to squeak out that win 28-27. Mark Wilson, the quarterback for Nordonia, finished 22 of 29 for 234 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Twinsburg did not fare so well against Willoughby South. They lost 39-0. And Wadsworth survived a late rush by Worcester. Wadsworth had this game well in hand, but Worcester was able to kind of bring this back. But Wadsworth was able to survive 23-17. Running back Wadsworth was led by a running back tandem of Nathan Metzger and Kyle Figueroa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Who both of those two players combined for 204 yards total rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns to give Wadsworth the 23-17 victory. Looking ahead to the Week 3 schedule, in the American Division, we have Twinsburg traveling to take on Aurora. St. Vincent St. Mary will travel to take on Barberton. Copley will travel to take on Buckeye. Eastlake North will travel to Cuyahoga Falls. Highland will travel to Brunswick. Revere will travel to West Branch. Roosevelt will travel to Ravenna. And Coventry will travel to Talmadge. In the National Division, Brecksville travels to take on Strongsville. Warren Harding will travel to take on Hudson. Nordonia will travel to take on Mayfield. North Royalton travels to Perry. Solon will travel to take on Stowe Monroe Falls. Twinsburg, again at Aurora. And Wadsworth travels in to take on tonight's guest, Drew Allar, and the Medina Bees. And that's all the
There it is.
fit in the Suburban League. Guys, thoughts?
Nice words.
My abilities to stammer on with names, anything? Bueller.
No, you did good.
Thanks.
You did good. You only messed up the one.
Which one?
Question. Figaro, whatever.
Figure eight?
Yes.
I mean, I was pure guessing. I was phonetically saying that. So
yeah, and we apologize to him in advance for our mispronunciation.
Yeah, that should really just be the tagline. Hey, we're not going to pronounce these names right. So
that's why I always say, if we have the correct pronunciations, it does help. For some players do have the names that you're like, you know what? Hopefully you say it how you think, and we don't have the pronunciations all in front of us. But if the coaches or if there's a parent out there that hears it, they can obviously send us an email, sportsuntappedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will get it right.
No, Sean, just real quick, looking at, Stowe, they're the class of the conference. So it seems, I think they have a winnable game this week against Solon, but next week is the game. You got to hope that they don't look too far in advance, because in week 4, they're going to be hosting Medina in a second straight GCC matchup. That's going to be, that's going to be a huge game. And, obviously Medina's coming to play. We've talked about it all show pretty much on how well Medina's doing. But I'm interested to see how they're going to play against Solon. Hopefully they won't be overlooking. Solon still, got the name. They're in the GCC. So whenever teams that are not in the GCC go to play against them, they're coming to play. So that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I like the way Stowe's playing. Again, they got kind of lost in the mix last year. They still did a very good job, but with the national division being what it was last year, this is kind of their year to shine. Them and Hudson, I think, are the two teams in the national division that are really probably going to be eking it out. Now, like you mentioned, Stowe has 4 straight non-conference games, and then it goes right into their schedule, where I think Hudson has a situation where they play a few conference games and then they have a non-conference game in that situation. So if Stowe can get past Solon and play a Medina team, and who knows what happens there, then they set themselves up to really have some momentum going into a conference schedule that could have them atop the national division for sure. Come the second week left in the season. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, what you mentioned. Sorry, Ed. What you mentioned that. Hudson schedule week 9, they actually play Brunswick in a really unique non-conference game so late in the season. That could potentially have some playoff implications for both teams in that one. So we'll see.
On that game, will then precede the Hudson and Stowe game at the end of the year. So I mean, that's certainly not going to be a walk in the park for Hudson. Stowe's would take on Twinsburg before that contest. After they take on Nordonia, which also looks very good. Having graduated Billy Levac, they're playing tough ball right now themselves. So Nordonia is certainly not to be overlooked in that national division.
In the American division, the team that's really surprising me is Talmadge, and I think it just goes down to quarterback play. Ty Hurst has been a good quarterback for them for the last couple of years, and I think now we're just seeing that they have, the weapons that are progressing on offense. The defense is able to stick with them. You hope maybe they can get some momentum here early in the season and continue that and make that, because right now if I'm looking at the American division, it's Barberton, it's your usual suspects. It's Aurora, Barberton, Copley, if they can find their way there. And then, a team like Talmadge could make some noise, and I think they could be a fun team to watch. I also, wouldn't put it past in the national division a team like North Royalton. they're just they're always there. They're always game, and we saw it last year. They didn't have much of a regular season, and then got in the playoffs and made some noise. So, the Suburban League is a very fun and fruitful league right now. There's a lot going on, and it's a fun league to follow. But we need to get those numbers up on these polls, because I need my Suburban League representation in winning some of these Players of the Week, Coaches of the Week.
Yeah, because they're putting up some monster numbers too. I mean,
I know. They're putting,
over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean,
yeah, and that was the toughest thing this week was picking a Player of the Week nominee. With all the great performances, it was really tough. I mean, you could have picked anybody, but I just decided to go with Jack Hardiman simply because last week I wanted to go with him for how well he played, and he pretty much did the same thing again 2 weeks in a row. So Jack Hardiman was my nominee.
And Jack, if you want, email us. Sean will get your information. He will buy you a case of chocolate milk. I mean, he's a good guy.
I mean, I'll buy a case of chocolate milk. I don't know if it'll get to Mr. Carter, because I like chocolate milk as much as the next one. I mean, I may buy it. But.
So we don't want to, not to, I don't think, I think Medina Highland is also going to have a lot to say in the American division. Coach Gibbons is, he's been there for quite a while now, and he's got a really good program established there. And if the first 2 games are any indication, they beat a very tough Division I team in Berea Mid Park. A great game against North Royalton, a county rivalry, which has really started to kind of pick up some steam as of late, against Brunswick. Those games are always good games, and that game will be at Brunswick, and then Highland's going to start going into conference play shortly thereafter. So it's going to be a good. Brunswick's going to be a great test for them, and they're going to be a great test for Brunswick. There's going to be definitely some playoff points on the line here. Playoff points are they're very important. As the season wears on, I think we're going to be more or less talking about seeding with a lot of the teams that we cover, more than we are about whether they make the playoffs or not. But that's going to add a different level of intrigue to the year that we haven't had in the past. A lot more teams mean a lot more, a lot more fun things to talk about with respect to who might host a first-round game. Because hosting a first-round game, there's nothing like it in the playoffs.
Favorite time of year when we get to have Ed break down statistics and rankings, and we wouldn't have it any other way when that time comes.
Joe Idol is the king on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I would not wish that on anyone else but Ed, because he's the only one that can understand that stuff.
As long as Ed has those glasses he wears, he looks sophisticated, and you could tell he means business when he wears those glasses.
The thing with the glasses is that you can't really see my eyes because of the glare. So they're not downstairs in my my office down here right now. So I had to. I was just hoping my left eye wasn't going to cross over like it usually does when I'm looking at something. So that's really the reason why I wear them. But it seems to have worked out okay so far today.
Well, I mean, we're done with week 2. We're going into week 3. I think we need to kind of give the folks who are listening and watching us here on Facebook, YouTube, an idea of what we're going to be doing for week 3. Now, week 3, we're going to pare it down a little bit. We have one game we're spotlighting, one game, and we're going to go out again to Medina way, to the craziest of crazies, the funnest of atmospheres, one of the funnest of atmospheres. We're going to Buckeye. We're going to Buckeye for the Copley Buckeye game. It's going to be a blast. I'm excited to go there. Mainly because it'll be my first game that I'm covering all year. So I'm excited to be out. And I know Josh and Rob have done a fantastic job with their games. Hopefully I can live up to, half of what they did.
Nothing less than half.
I'll give it a valiant effort. But that's going to be our spotlight game. What?
You can do it.
It'll be the Suburban League versus the Great Lakes Conference. So that'll be I'm looking forward to seeing the result of this as well. So have a good job. Enjoy covering that game, Sean.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I always like going out to Buckeye because it's a fantastic atmosphere, and they really love their Buckeye Bucks down there in Medina County, in Medina Buckeye. So
Yeah,
pretty excited to go there, and I'm really excited to see Copley play and see if they can continue that really great running game that they have against a really good and fast defense in Buckeye. So we'll see how that plays out, and I'll give you guys as much video and a quick little write up as I can after the game.
Yeah, it's always a great
Sounds
atmosphere
good.
there. And, it'll be a little bit different, especially because the week coming up is Labor Day on Monday. So instead of Monday night, it'd be on Tuesday night. Like we've done in the past. It's been Monday night is on Labor Day, so we have to change it up a little bit. So now everybody get to enjoy their Monday off, and Tuesday night will be a fun night.
We get to watch college football all weekend, Labor Day.
Yep, it's back. I mean, it was back this last week, and there were a few games, but
it's back this week. It's week 1.
But yeah, it was a fun week 2, week 3 coming up. And guys, any last thoughts before we close out the show? Any last thing? SportsOnTapPodcast.com. I want to thank everybody that went there. Also, Josh did a great job posting the polls and the videos. I mean, it was crazy how much activity our website had along with our Twitter. And, it was just nuts this week. But, we really appreciate all the support and everybody getting involved. That's what kind of makes this show and makes it fun. So, if you want to send us your stats or stories or information about your team, send it to sportsontapPodcast.com. You can visit our website, sportsontapPodcast.com. And we have all of our video there. What's so funny?
Nothing. I'm just enjoying listening to you.
You got them pipes, them velvety pipes.
I mean, you got to have them, man. At SOT Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We archive all of our videos. Go there as well. Guys, any last thoughts before we head into week 3 of the high school football season?
Big thanks to Medina quarterback Drew Allar for coming on our show today. Penn State commit.
Yep.
Having a great season so far, and we'll see what he can do against Wadsworth. Him and the Bees of Medina against the Wadsworth Grizzlies in a Medina County matchup. Two such matchups going on this week between Medina County foes with Brunswick and Highland and Medina and Wadsworth. So some great football coming up for Medina County this week.
Yeah. And congratulations to Player of the Week, Levi Ellis from Leary Catholic, and Coach of the Week, Brian Morgan from North Ridgeville.
Yeah, absolutely. And good luck to all the teams that are playing this week. It's going to be a fun week 3, and we're looking forward to it. Sean will be at Buckeye, so we will have that covered for you as well. All right, guys, great job, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
All right, for Ed Dick, Sean Duffy, Josh Jeffy, I'm Rob Troutman saying so long for Sports on Tap. We will see you. Sean will see you on Friday. Otherwise, we'll see you Tuesday night. And remember, go to our Twitter page and also sportsontapPodcast.com, where we will have our G&G Fitness Coach of the Week and Player of the Week. We will have those polls right there. All right, see you guys. Thanks for joining us right here on Sports on Tap.